All right, how's it going? Trucking YouTubes. Today we're here with Hector for Crums Leasing. They do leasing trailers. So we're kind of going to do a little podcast about the trucking industry, about trailer leasing, trucking market, pretty much everything, regarding the trucking. So if you don't mind, Hector, if you want to introduce yourself and we'll start it off going.
Absolutely, Bobby. Hey, listen, thank you for having us. Super excited to be here. My name is Hector Reyes. I am the COO of Crums Leasing, with our office based out of Texas.
Awesome. So how'd you guys get into trailer leasing?
It's a funny story. My partner, Eric Bledsoe, played in the NBA for 15 years, was really interested in trucks and trucking and, found a urgent need to kind of get some support out there for drivers and trailers. But, we wanted to do it a little differently. We wanted to, work a program that was more user friendly for, the end user, the owner operators, or even, small, medium sized companies, with, the state of how difficult it is to start in the trucking industry. It was imperative for us to kind of step in and help out. It was an opportunity that's pretty close to my heart, Bobby. I'm fourth generation driver. My father, my grandfather, I've been a driver and an owner. I've been doing this since 1993. What is that, 32 years now or something like that?
Just a minute.
It's been a long, exciting road, so I've gotten to see a lot.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So like right now, like we're say with the trailer leasing, you just mentioned like how, how hard it is to get into trucking nowadays. I mean, obviously today it's probably a little bit easier than after the pandemic because, the prices did go down a little bit, but at the same time, then you got interest rates that went up, obviously you got banks that are not willing to give loans as easily for people to get equipment now, after what happened. So obviously, as you said, like you want to explain a little bit more, like what kind of programs you guys offer to people to make it easier for them to get equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been having an experience myself, years ago as a truck owner, the difficulty of getting freight as it is, being a new DOT MC number, is one challenge. And then you add, having to, get equipment. It's really, really hard to survive in the trucking industry as a power only entity. You lose a lot of time, you lose a lot of days, and it doesn't give you the flexibility to be able to move in the direction where the freight rates demand it. So it our program is written specifically, towards the small, medium-sized guys, right? We've established a no credit check type program for them. It's super simple. We require, of course, some company, vetting. We do check to see if they're active. We, require security deposit and payment. The longer the lease, the cheaper the rates. But I will tell you that, statistically, we are right in line with the medium-sized companies, significantly cheaper than the big brands, right? Without having to mention any names, you know who those are. We offer flat rate pricing. We don't charge any, brake usage or tire usage. If you return the trailer in a similar condition that you leased it, with the exception of, normal wear and tear, you get your deposit back. But, we've been very successful. Guys that we get to start, have the privilege of serving our customers tend to not return trailers.
You guys based out of
They stay out.
San Antonio area over there?
We are. We were in Tennessee, have a small office in Tennessee, no trailers. It's more of a admin type office, but everything's transitioning now full time to Texas.
Okay, and what kind of trailers, what kind of types of trailers are you guys offering for everybody, just in case someone's interested?
We've got just about everything. I mean, of course, we are not doing any heavy equipment like RGNs. We don't do any stretchables at this time, but we're focused predominantly on flatbed and dry van. But we do have access through partnerships and relationships. We have access to over 500 trailers nationwide at this time.
I know. Are you seeing like more people actually getting like flatbeds now, since obviously the flatbed market has been smoking hot for however long now. Definitely a lot better than the reefers and the dry vans. So is there like a higher demand now you see with the flatbeds or no?
There has been, I've watched, quite a bit of your recordings on TikTok. I am a follower and a fan. You think you're doing a great job out there and
Appreciate
supporting
that.
these guys. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The flatbed, rates have been smoking and it's getting better. Coming out of this great freight recession has, slowly increased the demand. Right now it's a great time for guys to lease their own equipment so they can be better prepared because once it really takes off there's going to be
Shortage.
some shortage on equipment.
Yeah, and I mean the market is getting better. As many people still talk crap on TikToks and YouTubes and stuff, but I mean the market is getting better. I mean there is no denying that. That's for sure. Every single day I see even with the dry vans, looks like it's picking up. Obviously, it's not there where everybody still wants it to be, but overall there is a huge increase in volume. Definitely on all three types of trailers. Like I said, the flatbed's been absolutely just smoking it. So as it, like you said, as it keeps getting better, there's definitely gonna be start being a shortage, of equipment, especially in leasing. So
Yeah, and it's to that side of it. I mean, we maintain a pretty high utilization rate. I mean, the majority of our trailers stay out. Just like I said, really impressed with the way we've written the program. It's very user friendly. And I build relationships with all my customers. All of my customers, even with my title being, a C-suite associate, and they all can reach
hmm,
out and call me. And quite a few of our customers have that ability that they can call, they reach out, hey Hector, I've got this going on with my, with my business or whatever. And I kind of just help them support them in a friendly way, right? Not really telling them what to do, but just we're here to help our customers and the end user be successful because I mean that's why we're here. That's why that's our why in the success of why we're trying to write this business this way.
yeah, I mean, it's like noticing like since I started like actually making like these like TikToks and stuff like that, there's actually like a pretty like close in like trucking community I see on these social media platforms. Even you got like that red beard guy that does insurance. I mean, you guys do trailers, you know what I mean? Other people do other stuff, and it's actually like a pretty like nice ecosystem to where if as long as everybody starts being good and acting right, not screwing anybody over, I think there's a lot of good like relationships to be made and help everybody help each other out to kind of be more successful in trucking because it's a cutthroat industry, dude. Trucking like 100%. Like just the last 3 years of stuff I just went through, like it was just wild. And just being in industry for like over 20 years, just seeing like a lot of stuff, just a lot of people are just out for themselves and stuff like that. And the more people that actually like try to help each other out and do better, I think it's going to be better for the trucking industry, because there's no point in hating on people. There's enough room for everybody to, make a decent living. So as long as everybody helps each other out, I think we should be pretty good. So like when it comes to like leasing containers out to everybody and stuff like that, so like if they got like, expansion plans and stuff like that, so you guys work with them and be able to make some kind of like a plan to like, as they grow, be able to supply them with equipment and stuff like that.
Absolutely. We've got, quite a few customers that, we're privileged to support that started off with one truck. And I've got quite a few customers that, are north of 10 trailers that, that are leasing from us. You get to the point where the more trailers you have, the better your rates are, of course. But, you mentioned something in your statement that I just want to touch on really, quite, briefly about helping and supporting each other. I started, got in a truck. I mean, I can remember being in a 1970s something cab over with my father, who still drives to this day,
The
right?
little flat front trailers. Like
Right,
that's the
flat
first one
front,
I
cab
drove
over truck.
into. Well, no, I didn't
Yeah,
personally
it's
drive, but sorry, go ahead, my bad.
no problem. And I remember, during that time, and even when I was, I got my CDL in '93, drivers went out of their way to help each other. Of course, it was way before the cell phone. You didn't, it would made it a lot harder to get some support on the side of the road. But, I remember, seeing guys break down and it was really normal for two, three, four trucks to pull over
Help out.
and to help a guy out, and so, to build the relationships in trucking. I mean, ultimately, we're all here for the same purpose, right? To help support each other and to be successful. And it's refreshing to see the industry go back in that direction, and to make sure that we're all safe and that we're all successful and that we all get the ability to be able to support ourselves, support our business and our families. But yeah, but to your question, it's we will help you write some expansion plans to help support that. I will tell you that the majority of our customers, they're all pretty well seen. They've all been pretty successful, and it's we will help them take responsible steps if they ask us. But the second part of that is the expansion and to get better. Crums Leasing is getting ready to release probably here in the next 3 weeks our lease purchase program.
Hmm.
There's been incredibly high demand for it from our current customer base and customers that are calling asking if we do that. I will tell you that I was really careful, and I've been working on this program for the last 6 months before I unveiled it, because the lease purchase is a kind of a sticky word in the trucking industry.
I think with trailers, it's a little bit better than what they're doing with semi trucks. That's for sure. I mean,
Right.
I know I've completed several like lease to purchase trailer programs, and they're actually not bad. Then you do like a dollar buyout at the end or whatever. I mean, I think it's a lot less like used car salesman than with the trucks. You know what I mean? I personally, like for trailers, I don't think anything's wrong with the lease to purchase. Like you said, I think it's pretty good, 'cause especially if you're saying you got companies that got like 10 plus trailers, they're growing. If they were doing a lease to purchase, at least at the end they own it. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
think that's actually a good move on your guys' part, and I really don't think you shouldn't look bad upon it, because like I said, it's not like how the trucking companies do this lease to purchase program with the trucks and then screw the drivers over. With the trailers, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting, right? I mean, ultimately, the entire plan is ownership, right? And talking to Eric, it's really important for us that we do that and do it in a way that the goal is to help our customer base and our carriers ultimately own their asset, increase the valuation of their business, to be able to eventually, relieve themselves or alleviate a payment from a trailer. All of the trailers that we're going to be, working through this program are within 10 years. Majority of them are like 7, 8 years old. So it all falls in line with it. The majority of our fleet is Great Danes,
Hmm.
all high quality Duraplate trailers, air ride, some with, air inflation system in the tires and LED lights, stuff like that.
And then plus they're gonna have assets on too, because once it's paid off, it's
Yeah.
an asset, for your books, which is always definitely helpful. And then just while you're bringing up, I took a note too, because they're talking about how back in the day truckers used to help themselves. What was it called? McNally? Was it McNally Atlas, the Road Atlas?
The Red McNally.
Yeah, dude. Oh my god, I still remember that when I used to go on road trips with my dad when I was super young, before like
Yeah.
GPSs and stuff. Uh,
I remember having a Rand McNally that was just, I mean, it was enormous. It
oh
was a
yeah,
really big one, a
every year
spiral
they got
bind.
bigger.
Yeah, it's everybody had one. So it's interesting times. When look, I wouldn't change anything. I've been blessed to see the industry change, in the 32 years, in good ways and bad ways. I mean, equipment has gotten a lot nicer, with automatics and stuff like that. Even though I'm still an old school guy, or will prefer a 13 speed or an 18 speed, right? So. But automatics are nice, especially when you're in bad traffic like Atlanta or LA or Chicago or one of the big cities. It helps save your left leg because they can be incredibly tough in traffic.
Yeah, trucks are nicer, but I mean, back in the day, it was probably a lot easier to fix them too, And now it's like you got all this electrical stuff, and now you got, obviously trucking, is going. I mean, technology eventually, has to go that way. But I kind of think it was a little bit nice too back in the day, because I still remember like when I first started dispatching, not everybody still had cell phones. Like people had to still stop it, and I mean, and this is like, like this was like early 2000s. You
Yeah.
know, so like not, and back then not everybody still had cell phones, you know, which is
No,
crazy.
yeah, I mean it was different. It was different, right? I mean you had and you can still see them now in some of the older truck stops. All of the truck stops had in the
Payphones.
restaurants, right? They had a phone at every table. Some of the older, the big brand truck stops, still have those. But I remember all my phone numbers that I knew, I had them written all in the back of a business card, an old business card with all my phone numbers for my family or, et cetera. But I didn't start using a cell phone, till wow, man, what was it? It was in probably 2003 or four,
Yeah, something
something
like that.
like
Because
that.
I'm
I
like,
can't
because it
remember
was
stuff.
crazy. It was like 200 anytime minutes. Like, I remember when I got my first phone, and I was like probably like 15, 16. I suckered my dad into buying it for me. And after he got his first bill, he almost took my head off because it was like 200 anytime minutes and then free nights and weekends. But like, you went over those 200 anytime minutes, and it was like $1 a minute or something crazy afterwards. You know,
No, I know. And then you waited. I heard this recently, from somebody else that we're talking about it. Do you remember weekends free? So you waited till after 6 o'clock to start making calls, and you can call everybody on the weekend because the weekends were free.
well, nights and weekends.
So
I think after like 7 p.m. or six, like you said, 6 or 7, it'll be
6 o'clock.
free. Yeah, and then the weekend's
Yeah.
free all day. So I remember that, and then I also remember fax machines, man. Like we used to have to like sign rate confirmations and sign them and fax them back, and then receive the carrier setup
Yeah.
packets on their
Yeah.
fax machines. I mean, it was pretty. I think it was a lot funner back then, to be honest with you. Now it's kind of like just so strict and regulated at this point to where it's like,
It is. It
um,
is. And it's there are good things and bad things with regulation, right? And I think that I keep wanting to remind myself that with regulation, I want to kind of attribute it to safety and truck safety and road safety, but I think that we all need to be responsible for the safety of ourselves and others on the road, especially drivers. And but it's interesting where the industry is going, and I'm excited for the fate of the business. That we're I don't think trucks are ever going to go away, and truck drivers are ever going to go away, regardless of AI. At least probably not in my lifetime, and hopefully not in my kid's lifetime. Because even now, my son who's 26 years old, he's fifth generation driver, and but he got to experience the trucks and trucking from an early age. And I've done everything, man. I did heavy haul, flatbed. I hauled livestock for a long time and did a lot of reefer. Did a lot of reefer hauling trailers and stuff like that, running from Arizona and Texas down to Hunts Point Market, Chicago Market, Boston Market, all those up in the East Coast, and then hauling freight back down. But um, it's definitely been a great ride. I wouldn't change anything
yeah, I don't.
except probably the money,
Yeah, it's money,
better
definitely the
money.
money, especially right now. But I don't see these autonomous trucks. Man, it's what's scaring me a lot is these stupid those taxi things that are driving people around by themselves right now. That's kind of scaring me
Yeah.
because kind of like, that could be done, but I just don't see it on the side. I just don't see it in like winters. It's a bad winter. Sensors get frozen up. I mean, what are you gonna? I mean, it's gonna like, God forbid, crash into somebody, and then you know what I mean, like huge lawsuits. I really just don't see that autonomous trucking thing actually like really. I just don't see it for a long time, man. To be honest with you, I mean, we got
Well,
trains
I
for
mean,
that stuff.
right. And there's a one, there's such a thing as, instincts, right? And you run the instincts, you got instincts behind the wheel. And that the computer can replicate a lot of things, but I don't think it can replicate instincts, and when it's right, and when it's safe, and you feel it in your gut that you're in Washington or California or Colorado going over a big pass. Your instincts are telling you something, you pay attention, and you mentioned that, right? The fate of the safety in trucks and truckings, and where it's going to go. I have seen a few on the road, but I don't know where it's going to go in the next 20, 30 years. I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, Texas. I know Texas and Ohio, right? I think started doing the like well, not regional, but like just whatever, like kind of semi-local, semi-regional routes for the trucks. I mean, Texas. I mean, it's probably a little bit different because the weather's better. But at the same time, I just think the cost of it and the safety of it, I just don't think it's gonna blow up like that. You know what I mean? And And if I just don't know, man, because I know there was I forgot the Congress almost saved it because at first they voted that you need a person in the truck to come if the truck breaks down and go put the triangles out. But then they kind of I think backtrack. I got
Yeah.
to read exactly, but then they backtracked and changed it back, which is crazy. But like even something like that, you know what I mean? Like, was that thing gonna like spit out, like the hazard signs and triangles to to give people warnings that it's broken down, which it's just crazy. And I just think like somebody's paying them off to get this push going, but I really think it's gonna backfire on them. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I mean, it's an industry. It's not like manufacturing, right? That, it's repetitively making the same widget over and over. Trucking is very difficult to replicate the driver. You can put somebody in a truck and run a straight line, or put, an autonomous truck to run a straight line, and you're probably speaking like, San Antonio to Houston, San Antonio to Dallas, or Dallas to Houston in that triangle where it would probably work. But it's based on my experience, and probably a lot of these old heads like me in the trucking industry will probably nod when you hear me say that there's the driver instinct is something that I don't think that you can replicate in a computer. And it's those types of things, like you said, the triangles out on the road, or being able to recognize when it's really safe, because it can be freezing outside but it's still safe enough to drive.
Yeah.
You can look, it's snowing, but if you look in your side view mirror, and it says, as long as you still see rooster tail, and what a lot of guys that don't know what rooster tail is, when you look in your side view mirror, you see water coming off your tandems on your trailer. It's not sticking. When that goes away, you better be paying attention, because it's changed. A computer can't do any of that.
No, but what if their
So,
sensors freeze up? Then what?
oh, well, I mean, yeah, there's sensors for all of it, but again,
No, no, I'm
road
saying like if it's
conditions.
autonomous truck, a driver can still jump in a snowstorm and drive it like you're saying. But a truck that's autonomous, a couple sensors ice over, freeze over. I mean, who it can't. It's got to stop or it's going to crash or whatever at that point, right?
Yeah.
And there's nobody on that truck to jump out to even clean them out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, frozen. I mean, I don't know how many times I mean, you're in Chicago, right up in the north. How many times have you had to deal with frozen wipers?
Yeah, or
Snow
just
on the
stupid
wipers.
sensors on your car when you jump in. It's like beeping for no reason.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh, this
right.
adaptive whatever control is not working,
That's right.
whatever. So it's like I just think like it's going to be so like expensive to maintain it and to keep it going. I just think the same thing with like dispatching or like just even like getting customers. It's like, yeah, sure, like AI and technology could do a lot of stuff. Sure, it could send information to drivers if they got a load. All that stuff by itself maybe cut out a couple like low end jobs and like trucking companies and logistics. But overall, like this is still going to be like a personal human connection business where you talk to people that get freight, hate it or not, one hand washes another. You still got to bribe people, do people, take people out, get contracts with them and do all that kind of stuff. And was AI going to do that too? I just don't think they're going to be able to do that.
No, I mean, I just having a conversation with one of my boys a couple of nights ago. We're talking about, you know, something else, and with regards to technology and Bitcoin and stuff like that, and if it would ever replace the dollar. And we're talking about trends, and what we remember is, when my wife and I were his age, and what we thought, that I think we used the movie Back to the Future, that by 2025 they swore that we were going to have flying cars, right? But we're in 2025, we still don't see flying cars going everywhere on the road,
Yeah.
and kind of what the expectation is moving forward with technology and where it's going to go. It's exciting, right? It's exciting times. I don't dismiss it. I'm not angry about it. I think we just need to be careful with it. In my opinion, I'm no expert in technology by any means. Sometimes I struggle to navigate my Android, and it changes every year.
You got an Android?
But
Oh no, you're
I'm
part of
an
the
Android
green
guy,
green
man.
bubble gang, bro.
The green bubble gang. No, I love my Android, man. It's Apple. Just the flexibility of that phone has been great, but I think that I want to see it change. I don't mind the change. I would love to see it continue to change for the positive. But I think that it's still going to require somebody in the seat. Even if the truck is driving itself, it's still going to require somebody to be able to manage it, navigate it, and even if it's been done remotely, right, like a drone, in a camera, sitting in an office somewhere, to still be able to recognize and have some sort of instinct of what's next, what the truck needs to navigate. But I don't even know what. I'm curious to see what it would do for freight rates because, like you said, it's expensive.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely could be expensive. We'll see what it does. So the freight rates, like I said, we already got trains. So I mean, they could take stuff long distance. You know what I mean? And then you're
right.
always going to need freight that's hot. That's going to need like team drivers, and I don't know. We'll see, man. We'll see what happens. But like even like you said with that with that Bitcoin, like that Bitcoin. In my opinion, I think what they're doing with this crypto is just slowly suckering us into a digital currency. You know what I mean? Because eventually, I mean, everything like everything they do is strategic and planned out. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. So they're getting us used to something. But at this point, if all the jobs are gone, then what? Just put everybody in a universal, a basic income, and then just sit home all day and just do nothing.
I mean,
Or
it seemed to. I mean, look at what the effects that what happened during COVID. When you give somebody a few $1,000s, and what people don't want to go to work anymore. And, but it's don't get me wrong. I mean, I work from home, but I enjoy being in the field and seeing customers in their space and taking customers out to eat and having that human interaction with customers and building relationships. But um like I said, it's interesting where trucking's going. I think that we've made some good strides. I wish they had somebody in Washington that was more experienced. That's really been a gripe of mine to have somebody running certain departments in Washington or in the government that have no idea what trucks and trucking is.
well, I mean, I think
You
Duffy's been
know,
doing a lot better than Buttigieg did last times. But like that's we'll see. I mean, like the stuff with the foreign drivers and this stuff. I mean, this might help the trucking industry a lot, especially if they start enforcing it. You know what I mean? I mean, they really. I like the California stuff. What they're doing is they're trying to back down on the regulations of California. I mean, it seems like a little bit more is getting done, but like you said, I think what they need to do is actually take somebody like that's been in trucking and put them into a position like that to try to really,
absolutely. I mean, you
um,
don't. I'll use as an example, and I'm not. I mean, it's just an example, right? You don't have somebody run a hospital that doesn't know what medical is or what medicine is. You put somebody in to run a department that actually knows what the business is and knows what it is to be in a truck, or knows what trucking is. And it's. I think all of us as drivers would really benefit from somebody who knows what it is to be in the seat. I don't just like the foreign drivers. I don't have a problem with the foreign drivers. I think there's a driver shortage as it is. Like I said, I'll refer back to how the industry's changed and it's changed in negative ways. The whole English thing has been in the books for a long
or
time.
yeah, like in 1903 or something, I believe, if
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
mistaken.
so it's nothing new. It just wasn't enforced, and nobody was really paying attention to. And you've got some states that are being more aggressive than others to enforce it. There's been some significant accidents, one not too far from us here in San Antonio that happened in Austin, a few months back, where a driver took out a bunch of cars in the construction and
Yeah, a few
in
families
San
and
Antonio.
stuff.
Yeah, and it came back to not being able to read the signs.
Yeah, that's
You
which
know,
is wild. It's wild,
yeah.
but yeah, but I still don't. I really don't believe there's a driver shortage, man. Because if there was a driver shortage, then our rates would be skyrocketing, and trucking would be profitable. If there was a, what I mean, for a lot of people, if there was a driver shortage. I just think that's something like they just tell us. But just like overall, this whole like new generation, you know what I mean, like are just completely like just no, they don't want to work, dude. They really don't. You know what I mean? Like that's why nobody wants to get into trucking and go OTR. If they get into trucking, they want to do local. You know what I mean? So maybe there's a OTR shortage. You know what I mean? A little bit, but still, I don't see it because
Yeah.
if it was, the rates would be crazy. And then you got like also these kids like they don't want to get into the trades nowadays. Like in about 5-10 years from everything that I'm reading, there's gonna be like plumber, electrician shortages and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like so.
Look, I will attest to the fact that just I just built a big media center here in my home, and finding quality tradesmen to come and do the work, it was hard, and having them to do it inexpensively was even more difficult.
Possible almost.
Oh man, I mean, you want to talk about an hour and a half's worth of work? It's a few $1,000s,
Holy crap.
and it was crazy. Just drywall guys or electricians, and I know electricians are a little bit more specialized, but you're right. The blue collar guys are going to be making more money. But I want guys in the trucking industry to I miss the respect, and I would love for guys, especially this newer generation of drivers, to have some respect for the industry, right? And it makes me incredibly nervous to see a guy pass me on the left, on the in the fast lane, and he's got you know his left foot up on the dash. Or I've seen guys driving down the road on cruise control, and they got both feet on the passenger seat, sitting sideways. What are you doing,
Yeah,
bro?
that's
I
crazy.
mean,
Like, not only respect, like you're driving 80,000 pounds, man. You got to respect that. You know what I mean? You got to be careful. It's not like you're driving like in, a car, where you can just zoom in out of traffic. Like some of this, like I get so angry too, because like I drive at least like 80 to 100 miles every single day just to and from work.
wow.
So or like just even stay off the express lane. Like if you're in a semi truck, like why would you, like,
Yeah.
get an express lane? And a lot of times, like these guys do have a big ego. What it does is, causes road rage, and then, causes even more stuff to happen, which is, just completely. And I'm not saying a lot of cars are assholes too. I'm not going to say they're not,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of truckers that just think like, oh, like they own the road or something, which obviously they don't. You know what I mean? It's like people should do respect them, but like there's certain things you shouldn't do. Like you see like trucks just like swerving in and out of lanes, or like cutting people off, or just doing wild stuff on the highways, man, which is absolutely crazy. Because if you think about it, like I said, it's 80,000 pounds if you're loaded fully, truck, trailer, and cargo, which
Yeah,
is
my wife,
crazy.
my wife said this to me a long time ago. She's been on the road with me a few times through the years, off and on. And, she said that, and it's wishful thinking, of course, but she said that everybody that gets their driver's license should be required to experience being in a truck for a day, so they can have a perspective of what it takes to operate, that type of equipment, and they would realize, right? And it's like my son, him now being 26 years old and being a driver, I tell him you need to be courteous, even if nobody else is. You've got to follow your instincts. Don't be a bully because you got a big truck.
Yeah.
It's have some respect for yourself and the safety. And I remind him all the time when we speak and he's driving. You know, Manslaughter will put you in prison for a long, long time, bro.
Oh yeah.
You hurt somebody in that truck at the age of 25, 26 years old, your life is over.
Yeah, like the
You'll
guy
get
from
out when you're
Denver. Remember the guy
60.
from Denver? Which wasn't even his fault. It was his company's fault. And they ended up like locking it. I forgot. Yeah, it was Denver for sure. His brakes were on the highway. And I guess he already told his company like to fix his brakes or whatever, and they just refused to keep fixing it. And then Colorado locked him up, which is crazy in my opinion.
Look, this is exactly why Crums Leasing, we go to extremes into the safety and the maintenance of our equipment. And unfortunately have a great partner in Eric that, I know sometimes when, we send the bill over for payment, and he's gets a little frustrated, and with like any business that you got to spend money, right? But our trailers don't leave, you know, haphazard. We don't take any shortcuts. If we need to repair brakes, we repair brakes, and we repair drums every other brake change. Even if we got a wheel seal that's just damp, we change them. And if we're doing it on one side, we're doing it on the other. A full complete axle. We don't do one and leave the other. Um, we're very careful because, being from the perspective of being the owner, like you said, his company, that didn't pay attention to it, and his need to feel like he needed to drive, right? Because he still has to pay his bills and supply and feed his family. We don't want Crums Leasing to be the reason why you have a bad DOT score, or for us to be liable in case, somebody, one of our trailers is involved in a mix up somewhere on the road, right? Because the very first thing I mean, I'm sure as a business, the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to subpoena the records of the equipment and when it was serviced and when it was maintained and so on and so forth. So we want to protect our customers. And there are a lot of companies out there, unfortunately, a lot of leasing companies who do not take those steps. There's not a huge margin in trailer leasing. There's really not. But if you take shortcuts, you're sticking your neck out there to get cut off. So it's another great point that that I'm glad you brought up with regards to safety, because Crums Leasing, we care a lot about equipment, and we've got, believe me, I got the invoices to prove it.
Yeah, it's better safe than sorry, bro. Especially dealing with like even like my guys here when driving like forklifts or anything. They're always like, make sure you're careful, make sure everything, because it's like, dude, it's like, it's all you're doing with all heavy equipment, dangerous stuff. Like one wrong move, and you know what I mean. Like it's all fun and games till late, So everybody gotta be super
exactly
careful.
right. We, like I said, we help our people, man. I get customers that call me 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I answer the phone. So it's important that we take care of our customers and protect the industry.
All right, so let's get back into your leasing thing a little bit. So
Yeah.
so say somebody wants to rent or lease a trailer from you guys, or lease to own when you guys start the next month. Like what's the process like? Like how do they reach out to you guys? What do they do? Just kind of
It's
walk us through the
simple.
process.
They can find all the information with regards to the rental and leasing program on CrumsLeasing.info, and that's CRUMS leasing.info. My phone number is on there on the website. If you call that 480 number, yes, that's an Arizona number, and I am in Texas. I won't change my phone number. You'll be, that's my phone number. You'll speak to me directly. But the way that we've got it written right now is, we will require, since we do not do credit check, we want to try to build some credit worthiness within our scope, right? Within our building with our customers. So we are going to require that customers rent from us for at least 90 to 120 days to try to build some rapport and some credit worthiness out there to make sure that, guys are paying on time, and then we'll, once they've completed that, I guess you can quote on probationary period, then we can have that conversation about leasing equipment. We're going to lease equipment for incredibly fair rates. I will tell you that we don't expect that there's going to be a big difference between the lease rate, the lease rental rate, and the lease purchase rate. It should probably be just about the same.
Uh-huh. And then you guys work with, you just mentioned like newer MC. So if somebody has a newer MC, no problem. Reach out to you guys, try to get something done.
That's right. So newer MCs is just, we do, like I said, we do report positive pay history in our lease program. So we do require guys that, supply a proof of social security, or a copy of passport, got to match ID. We do some security vetting on our program, not just because we just don't go in to pull your credit, to make sure that you've got some credit worthiness. But we've it's based pretty much on a conversation and see how we get along and how it works. But yeah, I've got a few customers that were in 30 days into their MC and DOT number have trailers from us, and they're doing great. They're doing a great job.
Perfect. Or hopefully my flatbed videos inspire some more people to start hitting you guys up for some flatbeds. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it.
I got two of them right now. Two of them available to.
I'll definitely let people know. So like I said, I mean that's pretty much all I got. Unless you want any final thoughts from yourself or.
No, it's been great. Look, Bobby, like I said, I appreciate the invite. I think you just want to repeat what I said. You're doing a great job for drivers out there. I watch your feeds and your TikToks, and it's good to have great relationships out there, and been around this business a long time. I know that you care about drivers and you care about the industry, and you're a wealth of knowledge. So I just want to thank you on behalf of Crums Leasing and myself and Eric Bledsoe for the invite, and hopefully you ask you invite us back again in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Awesome, man. I'm going to put all the contact info for Hector Crums Leasing in the description. I'll also put it up in the intro and stuff like that so everybody has it. And thank you, Hector. Appreciate your time, my man.
No problem. Give me a call. I'm here all the time.